Hello, and thanks for joining me. My name is Mike Gendron. I'm a partner with CFO Insight. Today's session will continue on with the people side of the discussion. Today we're going to look at outside people. Last time we looked at people inside the company, primarily employees, perhaps some consultants. Today we're looking outside, and our definition of people is every individual, organization, or company that your company interacts with. It's a broad explanation of people because each one of them can have an impact on your success or failure. So the question is, who can influence your company and how will they influence your company? I'd like to break the outside people into three different groups. First of all, I will call them prime business people, prime. Secondly, I will call it government or regulatory agencies. And third would be support business people, the outside structure of your organization. Now, when we think about people, I want you to consider every functional area and every contact that you have, you or anyone in your organization has, with outside individuals. So that's logistics, operations, sales and marketing, finance, IT, human resources, whatever. Think about it in broad terms. So let's focus on prime business people first of all. Absolutely, customers and vendors. Your life depends on them. Now, when we talk about customers and vendors, we want to discuss today's customers and vendors and future customers and vendors because that is our future. How does it fit in our strategy? But other prime business people, organizations, labor unions, landlords, competitors, yes, competitors. They can be very important to your business because they may be potential acquisition targets when you look at your strategic plan. The next group I want to look at is government and regulatory agencies. You may not understand this, but you do have tremendous interaction with government and regulatory agencies. Even if there's not direct contact, you have responsibilities. So things like OSHA is an organization that you may not want to have interactions with, but you have to comply with their regulations. There are other organizations such as the Internal Revenue Service, the Department of Transportation, the FDA, just numerous organizations that you are responsible to work with. There are other organizations like import-export agencies, the Import-Export Bank, customs organizations. All of these can have an impact on your business. So I want you to think about how you interact with those people today and in the future when you look at your strategic plan. And lastly, we want to look at support business people. What would they be? Communities, charitable organizations, chambers of commerce, trade associations. Those, again, can be opportunities for you to grow your business more successfully, more profitably. Well, when you look at your functions and all of the interactions that you have today with those organizations, you may want to decide to move differently, to work differently with them as you look at your strategic plan. I talk about today and your future. Your strategic plan will guide you to understand the interactions required with the prime, government, regulatory, and support organizations out there. If you want to expand geographically, go international. You may want to start working with organizations such as the State Department to get contacts, other governmental agencies in foreign countries. Those are important if you're going to expand geographically into the international environment. You may want to expand your technology base, which might mean hiring consultants with unique specialties, for example, in programming, machine programming, something like that that is used in your factory. When you do your strategic plan, you establish your goals, how big you want to be, what your business is going to look like, and then think of these outside organizations as how can they complement my strategy. The challenge, thinking out a few years, because it takes time to build linkages. When you are developing your strategic plan, you want to understand the linkages between these three classes of organizations, people, and your business. So, for example, if you are going to grow in new product development and you don't have new product development people on your staff, outsource it. It may seem to be expensive initially, but when you look at the long-term growth potential as a result of a new product line or new product platform, it may be worth the investment. So it might be your growth perspectives. It might mean product development. It might mean resourcing in gaps as you look at your strategic plan. You want to understand the relationships and the risks and opportunities with outside organizations. You certainly don't want to run afoul of government agencies, IRS, Department of Transportation, FDA, but it's important to understand how these relationships are developed and what their value is long-term. Secured long-term relationships. You own property. You have a long-term lease with a landlord. Those are things that might be advantages or disadvantages. Let's talk about advantages and disadvantages. An advantage to owning your own property, you've got a fixed cost. You understand what the cost will be 1 year, 5 years, 10 years from now. The disadvantage, you may be landlocked. You can't grow beyond that footprint. So when you look at your strategy and the relationships that you have with outside organizations, there are good and bad. Flexibility may be extremely important in your plan. If you've got a high potential growth rate, you may not want to lock yourself into fixed long-term contracts, or you may want to. Depends on what your strategy is. These are things you have to consider. Now, when we talk about these relationships, in some cases they can be as simple as writing a check. In other cases, deep trust and understanding is essential. So, for example, if you're working product development with an outside consultancy, that relationship can build based on technology that you don't have and your goals, where you're working together to build products that will be the foundation of your future. Relationships are important in most cases and take time to develop a thorough relationship. So when you're thinking about your strategic plan and cashing out at full value, I want you to step back, certainly think about the inside people, but on the outside people, think through every element of your value chain and link that to your strategic plan to understand where you should focus your attention to achieve the greatest benefits. Thanks for joining me. Our next session will be on reporting, and that will be measuring and reporting the right information to the right people at the right time. Thanks for joining me.